I gotta make this video. So I'm not responsible for you, right? I am not responsible for you. The thing is that we're trying to be responsible for other people when we can't really be responsible for other people, right? I mean, because that just doesn't work. It means that we're going to try to control other people by force, right? I mean, because if they don't do it, somebody somewhere said, well, then we better make them, right? Because somebody somewhere said so. The thing is you and I, we each hold free will, right? So free, right, will is my expression to the world of what that can look like. And people 20 years ago, they would have seen me as a plumber and a guy that drank beer on the weekends and watched a football game with his friends and did all sorts of semi-normal things, going to the movie theater and checking out the newest flicks and seeing what's really going on in the world, right? But the thing I realized is that life, it caused me to be very stressed out. And when a person's in stress, their mind is actually in dis-ease, right? And that's where anxiety, depression, all of these things that are present that sometimes we're pushing away. We're not finding the root of why we're feeling that way, and so we entertain ourselves, or we work ourselves to death, or we find somebody that we enjoy spending time with in all sorts of ways, right? And that makes you happy, right? But that's the thing with this society right now, is people are trying to find their happiness, but yet I got a few minutes before I gotta be where I gotta be. People are trying to find their happiness from somebody somewhere else, and they're trying to find the way of them to do their life by somebody somewhere else. And a lot of times people are paying attention to the advertising and the idols that have been broadcasted over the television programming, right? You're getting you to see and act and do things a certain way that makes a certain number of people really powerful and rich, right? Instead, there is another way, right? I mean, because like out here, I'm not going to show these people's houses because they don't. It's available to view from the public, but not everybody wants their stuff on YouTube. So I try to be respectful of that. Anyway, right up here, there's expensive houses. Ones that if they were on the market, they're probably over $1 million. But right across the road here, there's like not. I mean, well, here, God, this thing's just such a pain in the ass to use. Why can't we invent good stuff, right? Why can't we have good stuff? All the areas over here, there's not really anything going on. Good stuff. It just fell off the windshield. Right. So anyway, why can't we have good stuff? It's because we keep buying the crap. We allow the people to produce crap and give it to us at a premium, right? What if we as a society started demanding that there was quality items in the things that we get, right? Things that I could buy once, and unless somebody steals it or it burns up in a fire, that it's still available to me, right? I mean, that's what makes sense to me. And with 3D printers everywhere, I mean, God, there's kids down the road that got 3D printers. They could have a business off of that. You just make whatever you want, right? And if it breaks, then you make it bigger. You make it bigger and better. You can melt down the plastics from the old, and to create the new plastics for the thread to build the new things, right? And And that's like everything. Everything is just a 3D printer, right? A carpenter is a 3D printer using 2x4s and nails. A welder is a 3D printer using molten metal. Um, a person who lays the road is a 3D printer of a road, right? They just use specialized tools. Everything is just element turned into what we want it to be. And the only problems we have in the world, we have an abundance of resources, we have an abundance of tools, we have abundance of people who are suffering, but we don't have enough people that are suffering, so that way the money is put towards the solutions to the suffering rather than just perpetuating the problem, right? Because there's ways to build homes, there's ways to build vehicles, there's ways to build water systems and sanitary systems and all of the things that we need to have a healthy, happy, peaceful, and abundant society. All of these things are available to us, and they're best used when they're recognized and implemented locally, because locally is luckily how it's happening everywhere for everyone, right? Say that 3 times fast. So anyway, yeah. So I have free will. I've used it. I've used it in my life to do good things, and I've also used it in my life to do things that I'd rather not talk about. I'm willing to admit that I've done things that I wouldn't want my grandma to be watching on a YouTube video right before Christmas dinner. Right? There's things that we do in our life when we consume alcohol or drugs that can make us less connected to who we want to be, right? And that's I believe that's our soul connection, and our soul connection is based on free will, right? That's how it learns, because when there's regret present, right, from things that you've done when they didn't align with you being in alignment with growth and oneness and a divine accordance with others, when there's a resentment, when there's a regret, I mean, there's I feel that we've been forgiven, but that feeling of love and connectedness, gratitude, acceptance, all of those things are what align with growth, oneness, and a divine accordance with others, right? If we're doing things in opposition to that, we're moving into like an ego. We're moving into an individual aspect of this collective deal, and that's where it's like it's kind of tricky, right? We are an individual aspect of the whole, right? We are still connected because we're all from the same material, right? I mean, you're eating a banana and I'm eating a banana, and it's both making us a little bit bigger of a body, right? But that's where we need to have responsibility, is individually. And when we individually take responsibility for ourselves and we look to create health, happiness, peace, and abundance in ourselves, right? And if we move only into voluntary action, voluntary interaction with each other, right? If I have a good idea and you hear it and you're like, whoa, that's a good idea, and I want to implement that into my life and my community, my environment, right? Well, then that's when many hands can make light work, because one idea can become 8 billion, or however many people are on this planet, right? However many billion people that have access to a device or the word of mouth can then have an idea and implementing it towards what you want in your life. The opposite of that is control. And that's what we've been experiencing for hundreds of years, or at least the 51 years I've been here. I mean, because I was 3 years old and asking about, hey, why is there kings and queens if everybody's equal? Why are there presidents and there's police that are telling you what to do even when you're not hurting nobody? Why is there this aspect of control here? And the answer I typically heard was, well, that's just the way it is. Well, I've never accepted that. I've never accepted that. I'm like, wait a minute. Let's dive in. Let's learn about this, and let's learn why we're not experiencing freedom, because it seems more like free dumb, DUMB, right? So anyway, I gotta go pick up my friend, and then she's gonna help me do some landscaping and some work up there at the apocalyptic ashram Hoxhaven. And so that's what we're trying to do now. And I think this phone heated up and it's like probably ready to catch on fire. So I'm going to turn it off.